Zombie Apocalypse.
In this video, we are going to talk about 10 best real-life survivors of all time. So before starting this video, please like this video, and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. If you're lucky, you'll never find yourself in a situation where you have to rely on your survival instincts. But the reality is that you never know when an accident will put you in a life or death situation in which time and vital decision-making are critical. Perhaps it's hitting the slopes to take advantage of freshly fallen powder on a distant mountainside, diving into an underwater cave, or sailing the sea, where you'll be confronted with unimaginable challenges. Here are some of the most incredible survival stories we've ever heard, from vast stretches of water to the crushing weight of ice, the depths of oceans, and the surreal sensation of being completely alone. Here are the 10 best real-life survivors of all time. So let's start. Number 10. The Wild Boars, Thai Soccer Team. In June 2018, a Thai soccer team and their coach decided to visit the adjacent Tham Luang Cave, Thailand's longest. 11 to 16-year-old guys and their coach, 25 years old, entered the cave. When a flash flood hit, they pushed deeper, finally reaching a 4 kilometers long elevated platform. The flood trapped the boys for 17 days in the tortuous cave system. They had no sustenance for 9 days and drank from dripping stalactites. But they didn't wait. Recognizing their situation, the youngsters took turns drilling a 16-foot hole into the cave wall. It was to preserve energy and avoid foot. Then 3 hours later, British divers found the lads. But just surviving was half the battle. Thai SEALs joined the lads in the cave as rescuers prepared their safe exit. Divers retrieved each athlete and their coach throughout a 3-day mission. Each boy had to wear a full-face diving mask, be tethered between 2 divers, and swim for hours through turns and squeezes. All survived and returned to a normal, healthy life following the rescue thanks to the Thai Navy SEALs and the international dive community. In the rescue effort, 1 former Thai Navy SEAL died. Number 9. Angela Hernandez. Angela Hernandez was driving her SUV down Highway 1 near Big Sur, California, in July 2018 when a little animal crossed the highway. Hernandez swerved to avoid it, sending her SUV off the road and over a cliff, 200 feet to a bleak, rocky beach. Hemorrhaged brain, ribs and collarbone, ruptured blood vessels in both eyes, collapsed lung, yet survived. Water lashed her knees when she awoke. She smashed her window with a multi-tool, swam to the shore, and passed out. She awoke without shoes and bruised, yet she continued wandering the shore seeking aid. It was raining on the shore, so she collected dropping water. Days went by. Cars passed on the cliff above her, but they couldn't see or hear her. It wasn't until a couple hikers looking for fishing sites noticed her destroyed Jeep and searched the beach for Hernandez, who was sleeping on some rocks. And they shouted for help. It took 7 days for rescuers to descend the cliff and transport Hernandez to a hospital. Number 8. Stephen Callahan. Callahan began his journey home in January 1981, after soloing across the Atlantic in his 6.5-meter sloop. The storm around his boat didn't bother him, but the hole a whale or shark made in the hull late at night did. Callahan dove back inside the sinking ship to gather survival items as it began to sink. Callahan climbed into his 6-foot circular raft, floating 800 miles west of the Canaries and heading further away from them by the minute. Callahan used a solar still to make water and spearfish. On day 14, he signaled a passing ship, which passed. After a month, he faded away. By day 50, he had salt water blisters, was dehydrated in the tropical waters, and had a hole in his raft. An exhausted Callahan was ultimately discovered by fishermen off the coast of Guadeloupe, while birds and fish circled his raft, scavenging his fish guts. He'd been gone 76 days. Number 7. The Robertson Family. The Robertson family spent 38 days at sea. In his son's words, Patriarch Dougal Robertson wanted to take his family on a boat excursion for the University of Life. On January 27, 1971, Dougal, his wife, and their 4 children set off on the Lucette, a wooden schooner. But his father had made few preparations, his son Douglas told the BBC. The family survived 17 months at sea, visiting ports and experiencing the world. But on June 15, 1972, The family came across a pod of killer whales off the Galapagos. The whales splintered and damaged the boat. The ship was filling up. That and 6 days' worth of food were all they had. They lived off rainwater and turtles while drifting at sea, hoping to catch Pacific currents that would drive them toward the Americas. After 16 days, the raft proved unusable, so the family departed in a dinghy. They clung to a 10-foot boat until they were discovered by Japanese fishermen on July 23, 1972. Number 6. Harrison Okene. On May 28, 2013, divers were trying to triage the Jackson 4, which had capsized 100 feet off the Nigerian coast. They were surprised to find a survivor. Cook Harrison Okene, afraid of drowning, he tried unsuccessfully to reach an emergency evacuation hatch. The boat began to fill with water, trapping Okene. He was eventually imprisoned in a 4-square-foot bubble of air. After 3 days he gave up. Then a knock. It was the hammer of the ship's divers. He was eventually given diving gear and taken to a decompression chamber for 2 days. He had been at depths that should have killed him and everyone else on board. Expect him to never go out to sea again. Number 5. Endurance Expedition. Ernest Shackleton had once conquered the South Pole, and he was preparing to do it again in 1914 with a company of 28 men. They wanted to traverse the continent to a waiting ship. Instead, their ship, the Endurance, broke apart, trapping them in the ice. The guys took to their lifeboats and floated to an island that took 14 days to reach in the cold Antarctic seas. They had to embark on another voyage to South Georgia Island, the nearest inhabited island, nearly 1,000 miles away. Despite the trials, all 28 soldiers on the mission survived, but not all the dogs, and were eaten as food supplies ran low. The Ross Sea Party, waiting on the other side of Antarctica, had 3 deaths. Number 4. Juliane Kopka. A Survivor's Tale of 2, Juliane Kopka. Aboard Lanza Flight 508 on Christmas Eve, 1971. Lightning struck the plane. The plane disintegrated in midair, leaving Kopka shackled 2 miles above the Peruvian rainforest. I beat her. Her bruising her clavicle was shat, but she was alive, the only survivor. Now she was alone in the forest. Her only food was candy, then she spotted a brook. She waded down it while staying hydrated. The insects in the bush almost ate her alive, and maggots infected her arm, but she found an encampment after 9 days. She administered basic first aid, including slathering herself in gasoline. A few hours later, lumber workers found her, treated her, and flew her to a hospital. Eventually her tale was portrayed in the 2000 documentary Wings of Hope by filmmaker Werner Herzog, who had a seat reserved on that very trip before canceling it. Number 3. Apollo 13. No person has gone further into space than Apollo 13's crew. Clyde Tombaugh's ashes are far past Pluto, but that's another tale. A miracle landing occurred after a journey of 248,655 miles from Earth. But the crew never made it to the moon's surface. Instead, poor wiring ignited an oxygen tank, blowing up part of the spaceship, killing Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes. The crew stretched their provisions by using the moon module as a lifeboat. They had to divide a day's worth of food between 3 people. To slingshot back to Earth, the team had to make an orbital correction far from the moon. The lunar module kept the astronauts safe in space, but it couldn't withstand re-entry. The crew re-entered the damaged command module before safely landing, everybody but Hayes unscathed. Number 2. Aron Ralston. Ralston will always be remembered for chopping off his hand to escape a climbing disaster between 2 rocks. Ralston was alone in Utah's Blue John Canyon. A loose boulder caught Ralston's hand as he shimmied down a canyon. No one knew he was there, and he had only a little water and food. He had to save himself. He battled for 3 days before deciding to self-amputate. After 2 days of experimenting, he nearly gave up. He was out of water and living off his own urine. Until day 6, when he realized he could amputate a chunk of his own arm by breaking his radius and ulna. After an hour of effort with an inexpensive multi-tool, he successfully amputated his hand and had to descend a 65-foot wall with one hand. 6 hours after his self-amputation, he was discovered by a European family camping out. Ralston was close to death from blood loss when he was found. He is still alive today, and when he isn't giving talks or having his life filmed, he goes on outdoor. Number 1. Ada Blackjack. Ada Blackjack was an Inupiat native from Alaska. Her Canadian employers, Vilhjalmur Stephenson and Alan Crawford, hired her on a trip to the Wrangel Islands, currently Russian territory. The mission was to claim them for Canada, and Blackjack was the expedition's seamstress and cook. On September 16, 1921, 5 members of the expedition were left on the island as a territorial claim. Blackjack took care of an ailing crewmate who subsequently died, leaving her alone on the island. Blackjack survived for 2 years there, despite the threat of polar bear assault. She learned to hunt seals and lived off their meat for almost 2 years before being rescued on August 28, 1923. Blackjack, according to a University of Alaska Anchorage website, was not greeted as a hero. The family finally vindicated her after meeting with her and issued a statement saying Blackjack had done everything possible to preserve their son's life. Still, she lived in poverty until her death in 1983. What do you think of our list? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.